Welcome to L Squared, a podcast with fresh Love Island content. This episode was incredibly emotionally intense because so many of us were just curling our toes, fingers, squeezing our eyes shut, and sweating that Trey would actually do the right thing and pick Justine. While you were doing that, I was perfectly calm on my couch, knowing that the power of Justine, her influence, her strength, would pull her name from Trey's mouth. Her power, her ability to make him stand would compel him to choose her. And it worked. No, I'm just kidding. I was incredibly nervous that Trey wouldn't pick Justine because he's been so untrustworthy leading up to this episode. Thankfully, he made the right choice. He actually did something right. Let's keep him in rhythm. Trey, keep doing stuff right. He picked Justine, and I actually saw in the first look, someone pointed this out on Twitter, that we could see a little bit of Justine's finger and her ring on someone's shoulder in a little frame of the video. So that was an indication to me and some of the other people in the group chat that Justine was the one who was picked before the episode aired. If you would like to get in on the group chat, you can message me at LonelyLoquat on Twitter. In this episode, we tied up the Justine, Trey, Kaitlynn storyline. Justine was finally chosen. She has gotten her rising action, her climax, and now she's going to have her falling action, which is where she looks for a new man. Now it's time for her to upgrade, now that she has secured her position in the villa, which we knew she would because it's Justine. It's Justine. So the episode opened up with Mackenzie and Justine talking about what Trey is going to do. And there was just a lot of stress all day in the villa about what Trey's decision is going to be, because whoever he chooses is going to stay in the villa. The other girl has to go home. And I thought it was a really important moment when Mackenzie was advising Justine, because, you know, we're into power dynamics on this podcast, and that's a showing of authority. So I'm feeling that Mackenzie sort of acting in that mom role, as Justine named her. I know she was just teasing, but Mackenzie sort of gives advice frequently, and I feel that influence improves her stance of power in the villa, especially among the girls. So that's definitely something to remember down the line. And Mackenzie's character, I'm starting to really like a lot more, because she seems very genuine, like she's very caring, and I'm starting to see more of what Connor sees, her selflessness, and that she really wants to help people and just give them information to benefit them. So I'm really liking Kenzie, and that she sort of puts herself on the line and puts herself out there to protect others and really stick up for her friends and be a support system for the other girls in the house. In their conversation, they mentioned that Kaitlynn hasn't had an easy time. We talked more about that in the previous podcast episode, Day 3, Friendship Triangle. To be honest, neither Kaitlynn nor Justine have had an easy time in the villa, but someone must go, and unfortunately, it's Kaitlynn. I think Justine had a harder time than Kaitlynn because no one expressed interest in Justine. In my opinion, Jeremiah only coupled with Rachel to get away from Justine. And Trey only moved to Justine because Kaitlynn rejected him. So I understand that Trey doesn't want to send anyone home. No one wants to be in that position because they're all enjoying an all-inclusive vacation. Everybody wants to stay and have a good time. So you never want to bring the party down, but it must be done. And you don't want that responsibility of feeling like you sent somebody's friend home or someone you're close to home. It always trips me out that the guys have no problem going up, like Trey in particular. He has no problem with whenever he talks to Justine about the situation. He just feels it's okay to tell her, I'm not physically attracted to you. I'm physically attracted to Kaitlynn, but I feel we have a connection personality wise. Like, I just don't like the fact that the guys think it's okay to basically call Justine the ugly duckling, because she's not. She's very beautiful. She's a good looking girl, and it's just not fair that so much of a woman's value is based on how she looks. I just feel he can talk to Justine without telling her or reminding her that he's unattracted to her. Another moment that stuck out during the episode was when I believe it was Trey. He was on the bench press lifting the girls on the bar. And I read that someone on Twitter thought that that was an interesting display of American machismo. There have definitely been a few examples of toxic masculinity in this season. It definitely is starting to look like a game of ego. So if you'd like to talk more about American machismo and masculinity, we can write a blog post about it and do an entire episode. Just DM us and we'll get into it. As far as what I think, I thought it was a lot of fun that they did that. I thought it was an interesting idea. I mean, all of them are on an island for hours with nothing to do, so I think sometimes you just have to get creative about what they decide to do. But I thought it was so sweet how Carrington was holding Kirsten the whole time she was on the bar. Like her whole weight wasn't even on there because he was just supporting so much of her. So I think it's so nice how he's gingerly and sensitive toward not only touching her but the way he talks to her, and he's just expressing so much adoration for her person. Obviously, I'm a Carrington fan. I don't think a lot of people dealt him a fair hand because they assumed he was a douchebag. He may, have a lot of cockiness or arrogance, but with him being on TV, I haven't seen a lot of that. And even if he does, I feel those personality traits work more against him than anybody else. So Carrington, to me, seems to be a pretty genuine guy. I think he's just trying to enjoy his experience, and I'm glad he's found someone that appreciates him just as much as he appreciates her. Cely and Johnny seem to still be a strong couple as well. They're so fun, and just as Matthew Hoffman, the narrator, said, they seem too perfect, as a matter of fact. Between the two power couples, it seems Johnny has taken on that alpha male role, like Mackenzie has taken on that alpha female role of advising the other islanders. Usually, when someone needs help or guidance, Johnny is the one who uses his influence to give them some information and advice on what he thinks they should do. So that's going to come into play for our power dynamics later. And we also saw Cely at the pool talking to the girls about how Johnny isn't her usual type, but they're hitting it off so well. So that's a testament to how strong their relationship is right now. If you've been keeping up with the Love Island gossip, you know that Johnny's ex-girlfriend, Tori Stenson, spoke out about him. If you want more information about that, you can visit our blog, lonelyloquacity.wordpress.com. We have the receipts on that, as well as the truth about Johnny's proposal to Tori Stenson. So next we have an update on our favorite bromance, Jeremiah and Johnny. I think it's kind of cute how Johnny's kind of taken Jeremiah under his wing. Ironically, they're the same age. I think Johnny just turned 22 in June of this summer. But they produced another song together. It's a Love Island song, and it's just so funny how seriously Johnny was taking it. He was like, "Come on, man, let's do it again." I love it. They're the next big boy band. Oh, duo. Let's bring back the classic R&B guy groups.
Go. Love Island, baby, won't you meet me by the pool? Love Island, never thought I'd be here finding you. I'm trying to get wet, ain't talking about swimming. When you with me, there's no better feeling, no. I'm here when you need, whenever you need, I'll hold you tight. Will you kiss me? It just feels so right. When you kiss me, it just feels so right.
Unfortunately, we're back to the segment of the episode where Moira feels pressured about sex with James again. Now James is seeming more clingy than he was before. I'm still feeling my opinion that he needs sex for validation. Based on some of the things he said this episode, it just seems like he's being very goal-oriented. He's saying things like, I've invested so much time, I've poured everything I have into this girl, and all of this for her just to, go somewhere else. And I just feel like, okay, did he pour everything into Moira as he claims because he wanted to get something from her? Or, is it because he really likes her? It's kind of hard to tell at this point because, she's trying to take a step back because she obviously feels suffocated by him a little bit. And I think it's not just his personality traits that he's a bit clingy, but I think the topic of sex is kind of adding on to it. And the jealousy he was showing in this episode was kind of the strike three. So James first expresses that sex is a big part of getting to know each other. And I think that's understandable. I think Moira is trying to be understanding of him, but I think she's also trying to get him to understand that that's not going to happen from her, especially on Love Island, and he needs to hear that she's trying to take a step back, and it just seems like he has his hand out still waiting, but she is trying to tell him, I don't want to give that. I don't want to do that. Let's just not bring it up anymore until I'm ready. It would have been nice if James were more receptive to that, but I think he kind of took Moira's rejection as she's not that into him, which isn't true. I think she just felt pressured by him.
I really like someone, I show that side of me, because I feel like if it was in the real world, we would have been intimate.
Yeah. I think it's just still too soon for me.
But you still want to get there, right?
I don't know.
So now we're back to Trey's decision, and he's been expressing to Justine, Kaitlynn, and all of the other Islanders that he wants somebody long term. I still think Kaitlynn humbled Trey when she rejected him. I think with him being a college athlete, he isn't really accustomed to a lot of girls saying no to him. And when she put him in the brother zone, I think that was a little bit of a reality check of where he is and what he has to do to be in this competition and be successful and be liked by the other Islanders. He can't be a player in this environment because it's become very obvious that real, genuine connections are what's highly valued. And I think that's been exemplified by the two main couples, Connor and Mackenzie, and Cely and Johnny. And we have to remember that Johnny in the male group has the most influence, or at least he's exercising his influence the most, and he has a really strong relationship with Cely. So Trey, being competitive in the very least, is trying to get in on that. So he's really just strategizing here, saying he wants to be with someone long term. I think if other girls were checking for Trey, then he would have a different attitude about the entire thing. But seeing as he's not in college anymore and girls aren't trying to break down his door, he has to play his game a bit differently. I don't want to completely discount what he's been saying about Justine and having a connection with her. I do think the two of them have a bond, but I haven't let go of the idea that if someone else walks in the villa that Trey is physically attracted to, that he also can build a personal, genuine connection with, he's going to move away from Justine. He's not going to let the loyalty to her override anything like that. Love Island is definitely a game of ego, especially with the guys. So I definitely have it in my mind that Trey would rather be the user than used, as would most people. So my hope is that he's not thinking Justine is too desperate to leave him. Justine is not at all desperate, so I really hope that's not in his mind. Our queen has graced him with the opportunity to choose her. He needs to see that. The fact is, Justine is so good and loyal that she won't release Trey because of her own moral standing. I think another reason Trey didn't choose Kaitlynn was because Kaitlynn is a player too. That was exemplified on day one when she was kissing multiple guys. So it's pretty obvious that if another person walks in, Kaitlynn, she's going to be looking the other way, and Trey doesn't want that. So it's pretty reasonable that he's trying to find somebody who's going to stick with him, especially within the realm of the competition. The conversation Trey was having with Johnny about who to choose reminded me of a quote. In complete darkness, we are all the same. It is only our knowledge and wisdom that separates us. Don't let your eyes deceive you. Janet Jackson. The men were talking about who Trey can have a better connection with, because you can kiss and cuddle and hug on anybody, but as far as who you get along best with and how you get along is something that needs to be developed over time. So they were basically saying that he can get to know Justine first and cuddle her later, or he can cuddle Kaitlynn right away and get to know her later, but he may not even have the chance to get to know Kaitlynn later because she may turn her head toward another guy before they can even progress in that area. I think Trey did a good job with thinking with his head. The one at the top, that is. Next, I'd like to say I was wrong about Connor. I thought Connor would be the most boring guy, and he still may very well be the most boring guy because we haven't seen much of his personality. We've only seen snippets of him talking with Mackenzie and saying a couple words to James, but I could have sworn he was going to be the first guy to leave the island because he's just way too normal. But he coupled up well. He coupled with Mackenzie, and those two seem to be a really good match for each other. He's very accepting of who she is, and he is very serious about growing and building a relationship with her. So I'm glad. I actually think the two of them are going to go the distance. And his speech to Kenzie during the recoupling was so sweet. No other teddy bear. That was absolutely adorable and so personal. He also mentioned how much he likes her selflessness, and that to me said that it was honestly coming from his heart. It also showed that he's recognizing her qualities and really learning to appreciate her for who she is. So in the future, when Kenzie is possibly being dramatic or maybe not the best version of herself, Connor already has a vivid idea of who the real Kenzie is, like more of her layers. So he's not going to counter out if she has any bad moments. She can truly be herself around him, and he probably feels that he can be himself around her, which is so important for a relationship. Johnny's speech to Cely was nice too. He said that he wants to be with Cely and be a better man for her. I thought it was really interesting how vulnerable Carrington made himself when he was making his speech to Kirsten, because he said that she has exposed some soft spots in him that he didn't even know he had, and he can't see himself talking to anybody else, which is a big, bold statement on Love Island on national TV. I really think Carrington meant what he said, and I think he's incredibly invested in Kirsten, which is awesome. The frat boy surprised everybody. And then my favorite recoupling speech was Jeremiah's because of what he said to Rachel.
Journey takes us. So the girl I would like to couple up with is Rachel. Come here, girl.
That was actually very romantic. I feel they should give Jeremiah more screen time because he seems like the funny guy out of everybody. Like, he's the one to come up with the slang and the one-liners, and we haven't gotten any of that this season. So give Jeremiah more camera time so we can get those funny tidbits. Now we're down to Trey and who he's going to choose. We already know he chose Justine because she willed it so. But listening to his speech, I definitely thought he was going to choose Kaitlynn. A part of me is wondering if he kind of just went with his gut at the last second. Besides that, Kaitlynn handled it with a lot of grace. Usually when people leave the island, they leave in tears, but she really kept a brave face and was very strong about the whole thing. I think leading up to it, she made her peace with it. So big applause to Kaitlynn for holding her head up and really being a graceful woman while exiting the villa. It was very interesting to hear Trey said he was glad to have Justine in his bed. He said last episode that he wasn't going to get weird with her very fast. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully Justine doesn't start falling for him, because once again, we would hate for her to catch feelings for Trey and his head turns on a dime. So then we got the big surprise of the episode. Moira was super excited to hear that she was selected for a date with Calvin. I kind of felt bad for Moira when she received the news because she actually seemed to hide her face from James when she was expressing her shock. I just think he was kind of making her uncomfortable a little bit, and she was just trying to cover her face and her excitement because maybe she didn't want him to jump all over her. And I think she was just having a genuine moment like, oh my gosh, me, I was picked. So this is the part where we get into James talking to the guys about how he's worked hard for Moira to like him. And that just made me think, James, why were you trying so hard? Why were you working so hard for her to like you? Why couldn't you just, be yourself? Was this like a goal-oriented strategy? Were you trying to get something from her? Is this a part of the reason why she feels so pressured about the sex thing? So that was just another huge red flag from James when he started acting angry and jealous about Moira going on the date with Calvin. It's supposed to be Love Island. Everyone's supposed to date, and it's supposed to be a lot of fun, and it just seemed like James got way too caught up in his feelings way too soon. Kirsten was also called on a date by Caleb. And of course, Carrington had to comment that his wolf might come out. I don't think Carrington has a wolf. I think Carrington's more of a puppy. But we know he likes to hype himself up, so let the guy feel confident. I thought it was interesting that before Kirsten left for the date, he said to her, "We're sleeping together tonight," and gave her a little butt slap. I think she liked it. I think she likes his confidence, and she was obviously very drawn to Caleb's confidence on their date. So that's something that draws her in, just a little bit of cockiness from her guy. And James got a little bit of reassurance from Moira before the date. But that wasn't enough to help him keep his cool. He was still super, super stressed. Now, with Caleb, a lot of people were complaining about Calvin and Caleb, that they weren't the kind of guys that should be on Love Island. I think both of them are really sweet, good-looking guys. We know by now I'm an optimist, but Caleb does seem sweet and very family-oriented. I would love to see him with Justine. I'm not surprised he chose Kirsten because after scrolling through his Instagram, he seems to prefer white women. And I was a little bit sad to see that Kirsten friend-zoned him so quickly. I kind of wish Caleb had flirted a little bit more on their date because Kirsten did like him. She was giving him a little bit of interest, but he wasn't really pulling her in enough for her to get very curious. So Carrington definitely has his claws deep in her, and she seems very satisfied with their relationship. Calvin's personality trait is bug spray salesman and freckles, but they work for him because he's actually pretty flirty. I mean, he definitely came at the right time for Moira. That's going to be her escape vessel from James. Besides that, I also predicted Moira's head would turn or she would break a heart because she said in the beginning she was boy crazy. So whoever comes in the villa, we can pretty much expect her to give them some attention or try to get to know them. Next, Caleb asked Rachel on a date. And who was Jeremiah going to fight when Rachel got that text? Did anybody else see him get up, pace the floor, and pull up his pants? Was he about to punch the air? Rachel on her date, it seemed like she was pretty excited, but that she was gonna friend zone Caleb pretty fast too. I think it's because Caleb comes off as the very friendly guy. His confidence is good, but his sweetness may be working against him a little bit. And Calvin asked Kirsten as his second date. A lot of people were commenting that they thought Calvin was going to ask Carrington on a date, but it was actually Kirsten. That was really funny. So in the next episode, we're going to find out how the second dates went, and we're going to see how all of the guys reacted to them. Next, we're going to do our mentions from Twitter. One person said, not Ed Sheeran being mad. Yeah, this sort of temper wasn't expected from James. I think most of us expected to see something like that from Carrington because in the beginning he was talking about he's an alpha, and then in this episode he reiterated that he has a wolf that can come out. I think James kind of came across as the softie or the chill guy, but his anger and aggressiveness is very surprising. So hopefully he's not too intimidating toward Moira when she comes back from her date. At OG Drama Queen says, me remembering Cely, Mackenzie, and Connor wanted Justine to stay. Your loyalty will be rewarded when it's time to vote. The rest of y'all, don't unpack your suitcases because we're voting you off. Yeah, definitely. We have to remember who's Team Justine, because that's the alliance the fans have with Justine. Like, that's our girl. We're voting to keep her on until Casa Amor, through Casa Amor, into the finale. Another person says, am I the only one who thought Carrington was going on the date? LMAO. No, lots of people thought that. I think it's because Carrington received the text and the camera was close on his face, so it seemed like, oh, he's about to go out there and meet the guy? What's gonna go down now? So someone else says, Trey would rather die than say he's physically attracted to Justine. Yeah, that's how it seems. Brianna says, why do these men keep acting like Justine is unattractive? Have you seen her? She's gorgeous. And there's a Beyonce image. Yeah, absolutely. Justine is so good looking. It's sad that these guys feel like they should keep throwing in her face that they don't think she's beautiful, that she's only inside beauty, not outside beauty. Justine is beautiful all around, period. And we're glad this episode that she was finally chosen. Now our girl is on and she's going to get her upgrade. An upgrade from Trey, that is. Now that Kaitlynn has been dumped from the island and we have 2 new guys in the villa, we have 14 islanders. I'm not sure of Caleb's race or ethnicity. I suspect he's biracial, but he's at least African American. So that makes 8 out of our 14 islanders people of color. And that makes our diversity percentage 57%. It's up 3% from last episode. Subscribe to our podcast because we have an episode on colorism coming soon. If you'd like an episode on masculinity as well, please DM us and we'll be sure to comply with that and mention all of the things you want to talk about. Now for the power rankings. And I'm going to cheat a little bit on this because I think the order in which the guys gave their speeches is telling as to what the power dynamic is in the villa. The order of the speeches was Connor, Johnny, Carrington, Jamoira, James, then Trey. So I think that was most solid to least solid. In truth, our power ranking has only switched between 2 couples, and that's Johnny and Cely and Connor and Mackenzie. I decided to put Connor and Mackenzie at the top of the pecking order because Connor and Mackenzie's relationship seems to be the most mature. They've already had their storming. They're considered the best looking couple on the island. Mackenzie is leading the girl group. And Connor is acting as a good example to the guys of a good, strong, genuine relationship. So I think the other islanders see them as couple goals. Johnny and Cely seem very strong too. Johnny takes on more of that influential alpha male role within the guy group. But I think Johnny and Cely's relationship doesn't come across as seriously as Connor and Mackenzie's relationship does. I don't think they, as a unit, have that presence of villa mom and dad, villa parents, or that villa power couple like Connor and Mackenzie do. I also could see Cely's head turning at some point. If a guy comes in and shows her interest, I think she'll flirt a little bit and give him some play. So that question kind of weakens her unity to Johnny. While Mackenzie and Connor, I can't see either of their heads turning for anybody who walks into the villa. After Johnny and Cely, it's Carrington and Kirsten, and they're still a young budding romance. Jamoira and Rachel, I still think Jamoira's head may turn and that Rachel's being a little too loyal too soon. James and Moira, they're already showing cracks, and Moira's just really trying to get her distance from him. So thankfully, Calvin showed up as her safety boat. And then there's Trey and Justine, who are starting out as a friendship couple and may progress into something else. But that's all Trey's dream. We know Justine is going to upgrade from him. Thank you to everyone who participated in the group chat. It was a lot of fun watching the episode with you all. Keep up with us at Lonely Loquate on Instagram and Twitter. DM us if you'd like to be featured on the show. We love responding to listeners' comments. We'll be back tomorrow night with more fresh Love Island content.